Hello and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we will be creating the functionality for our app using JavaScript. This is going to be a two-part lecture series. So this part one will start and we'll finish off in part two. So this is my JavaScript file. The way this lecture is going to work, I am going to pre-write the code, add the code on, and then explain it. So to start with, I'm going to create a variable that I will call questions, and inside this variable we're going to set the variable to equals to an array, and inside that array we're going to also have objects that will include the questions for the quiz, the choices you have to make, and then the correct answer. So we're going to bundle all this up inside a variable and set that variable to equals to an array, and that array will contain objects and also array within that object as well. All right, I have added some code on, a chunk of code. So line 1 here, I've created a variable called questions. Okay, and I've set that to equals to an array. So that's the beginning array there. If I scroll down, and the array ends on line 53 here. So this is the closing array. Okay, and inside that array, you've also got objects. So where you see curly braces, you know that you're looking at an object. Where you see square brackets, know that you are looking at an array. So inside this array and the object, we've got the question. So this is the question that the quiz will ask. And then this is the actual question. With an object, you need to have a property and then obviously the value. So the question would be the property, and this question here, this reply here will be the value. So I'm asking a question, and this is a question. And then on line 3 here, we've got another object property called choices, and the value is equals to an array. So inside that array is where the answers will be. So looping through that array, the correct answer will be 3. An array, when you are accessing the elements in an array is a zero-based index. So the first one is known as a 0. So this will be baby. It says here the correct answer is 3, which would be 0, 1, 2, 3, which is lava. So just remember that when you're numbering in an array, it's a zero-based index. The first one is usually a 0 and so on. So the format for this here is the format for all the questions inside this array. So all these are values of this variable called question. Everything here belongs to this variable called questions. So the format is the same. I ask a question, which is the property, and then the value, which is the actual question. The choices are enclosed inside an array, and then we use the index base to pick out the correct answers. So the format is the same all through. Okay, and that's the very last question. So you don't have to use the same. I've used baby names of animals, so you could do something you're completely interested in if you don't want to use baby names. So just as long as the format is the same, the quiz should work as well. All right, but any parts of this you don't understand, please feel free to let me know. Line 55, 56, and 57 are new variables I have added. The first variable is called here current question. The value is set to 0, and the correct answer, the value is set to 0. Variable quiz over is set to false. So all these variables are set to 0 or false. False is a Boolean value. Boolean means it's either true, the result is either one or the other. So it's either true or false. So these are the values I've given the variables at the moment. I have added some more code here from line 59 all the way to line 91. All right, let me walk you through the code. Line 59, well, wherever you see a $sign, know that you are referencing a jQuery library. Line 59 basically says it's a document.ready function. What this function does, it checks to make sure that the page is fully loaded before it executes the code. The dot ready is what checks to make sure that the page is fully loaded, so that the code is not executed prematurely before the page is fully loaded. And the function, whatever happens once the page is loaded, is displayed within the function, which is this curly braces here, which starts on line 59 and ends on line 91. So let me run through the code with you. Line 60, display the current question. What that is, it will display the very first question. Okay. And then the 61, the dollar, and then the this inside the parameter. This refers to the current element it's referring to. So it's saying this dot find in parentheses. So it will look for the next quiz message dot hide. Okay. So what that means is that it hides the others, but finds the current one. All right. And then line 62, you then use the next button. You say dollar, and then it's passed in this. What this method does, using the dot find, it will pick out the next question using the next button. Okay. And you notice here I've attached a dot on method here, and this method takes in two parameters. It takes in the click, which is the event, and the function. So when there is a click on the button, the click will be the event. It will trigger off this function here, which is what happens between these curly braces and and this curly braces here. So everything in here will be triggered once the next button is clicked. So I've got an if statement on line 63 saying if the question mark, the exclamation means that if the quiz is not over, then the value equals to $, which is a jQuery input type radio button. If the radio button is checked and if the value of the radio button is checked and the quiz is not over, and if the value is not undefined, that if the value is not unknown, do this. Go pick out the document of find, look for the quiz message, look for the text, and then select the right answer. So it prompts you to select the right answer. Line 67, again, similar approach. It picks out the quiz, and then it uses the .show method to display the quiz. If with an if statement, there are two conditions. It's saying if the quiz is not over, do this. But if the quiz is over, do this. Find this document here, dot find, using this find method, this quiz, and then hide. If the value is equals to questions and it passed in the current question and the answer is correct, then correct answer, you add the correct answer. That's what that means. If the current question plus means if you're increasing the question. If the current question is less than the question length of the question, display the current question. Else, display the score. Okay, so it's again using the jQuery library again. If the document of find the next button is not basically what it's saying, if you click on the next button, it should display it should give you a prompt to play the quiz again. So if the quiz is over, If the quiz is over, means it's true. That means the game is over. You can start again. That's where this else statement here. If quiz over is false, yeah, that means the quiz is not over. Then do this. Click on the next button, get the next question. If that's not the case, or if the quiz is over, you can reset the quiz using this function, display the current question, and you can hide the score. So the score is hidden until the quiz, all the questions have been answered. So that is it. We're going to stop here for this lecture because it's gone on a bit long. So we started off by defining a variable and setting the questions, the question choices and the answers. Okay, and then we moved on. These are all the questions. Okay, and then we moved on to set 3 variables there. And we also have the document.ready method, and that's the rest of it. So that's it for this lecture. We'll complete it in part 2. Thanks for watching. If there's any aspects you do not understand, please feel free to let me know. Bye for now.